think this New York Times piece, the fact that they got cooperation from Team Biden and probably from the Hunter Biden legal team, is an indication to me they are extremely concerned that he is going to be indicted. This grand jury's been meeting since 2018. They were suspended during COVID because of health care protocols. It's back up and running, and it's very clear that when it comes to the issues related to tax evasion and money laundering and the other issues wrapped up with it, they're extremely concerned that Hunter Biden's going to be indicted. And I think this article is an effort to frame that conversation in a way that could be the most favorable to them.
All right.
Now we know for sure Senator Johnson was right to point out this intelligence that showed us it was profiteering from the White House. Senator, thanks very much for being with us this morning. I want to cover three things this morning with you. I want to cover the documents that you have indicating the money that the Biden family has taken in. I want to cover the media and the cover-up that has gone on throughout the years on this subject. And number three, I want to get into the intelligence agencies, the FBI, and how they put barriers in front of you as you try to do your work. First question, do you believe Hunter Biden is going to get indicted now that we see the media coming around to reporting the truth? So we also had emails, by the way, from the laptop way before the election in 2020. We showed the email of the quote unquote big guy. Let's take a look at that email, because this is an email where they are talking about dividing up who owns what in this Chinese company that they were doing a deal with. And the email is very clear, saying 10% is going to be held by H for the big guy. And as you can see, it goes through all of the divisions in terms of who gets what. Your thoughts on this email from one of Hunter's partners, James Giller, to discuss who gets what to Tony Bobulinski, another partner of Hunter Biden. And we have a list of Hunter Biden, some of his business deals, where we have Hunter Biden's alleged business deals here. All of this information was known by the FBI as there was an impeachment trial to try to impeach President Trump. All the while, the FBI knew of the laptop, knew that Hunter received $3.5 million wire transfer from the former mayor of Moscow's wife, knew about the $83,000 a month he was getting from Ukraine, knew about the stakes in Chinese companies, knew about the $5 million from Chinese oil company CEFC, all the while as an impeachment trial went on over President Trump and a phone call that he had with then Ukrainian president. Do you believe that the calls, the decisions that President Biden has made as a result of what we're seeing take place on the world stage, Russia invading Ukraine, China trying to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower, are Joe Biden's decisions compromised because of all of the money he's taken in? The China initiative, I remember a string of indictments under the Trump administration that clearly identified people who were surveilling, who were spying on Americans and sending information, intellectual property data, back to the Chinese government. Is that not happening anymore? I don't understand. Why cancel the China initiative? Why won't the DOJ now investigate intellectual property theft any longer?
Yeah, I don't know what the Justice Department is going to do. I do know I don't trust the Justice Department. And I think really what the New York Times and the Washington Post articles prove is how complicit they have been and continue to be in the cover-up. And, quite honestly, they're not impartial. They're advocates for the Democrat Party of the radical left. The Washington Post learned a lot of lessons from their coverage of Nixon. When you get caught in a cover-up, and that's what's happened, the media is being caught in a cover-up. They're being caught with their lies. What you do, and this is an intelligence community technique, is you engage in what they call a limited hangout, or in Nixon's case, a modified limited hangout. You've let out just enough information, just enough truth to try and get you by the moment. We can't allow our intelligence agencies, the Department of Justice, the FBI, or the media to get away with this. This is serious business. This is unbelievable corruption at the highest levels of government and within our media. We are all being snookered by them. This has been, from my standpoint, a massive diversionary operation, again, to try and take the American public's attention away from their wrongdoing, their lies, their cover-ups. Well, our report was based off almost exclusively on U.S. government documents and interviews with U.S. citizens. And of course, it was all lied about, falsely accused of disseminating Russian disinformation. It wasn't. We had Treasury documents that showed a very troubling number of wire transfers that just detailed out a vast web of foreign financial entanglements. Specifically, we were able to document probably about $13 million of flows between Russia, between Burisma, between members of the Communist Party regime in China. But that was all ignored by the press. They looked at our report in September 2020 and just shrugged, no evidence of criminal activity here, no evidence that Joe Biden's implicated in all this, and they covered it up. And as a result, they got Joe Biden elected. Now they continue to cover up for him. But this is troubling. Now we have actual bank records that verify what we reported back in September 2020 is true. The laptop is obviously a treasure trove of additional corroborating evidence as well. And unfortunately, our intelligence agencies, I think our FBI, have been sitting on this information. And unfortunately, they were complicit as well in the cover-up. Well, again, just to prove the complicity of the media, the Washington Post says, there's no evidence that Joe Biden's implicated in this. That's some pretty strong evidence. That's a contemporaneous email. It's been verified the big guy was Joe Biden. There's plenty of evidence that Joe Biden met, because there are photographs of him meeting with Hunter Biden's business partners. He repeatedly lied to the American public that he said he never, ever discussed Hunter Biden's overseas business deals with Hunter. Well, no, he was just photographed with his business partners. So if he's lying, bold-faced lying, that again is pretty good evidence that something is amiss here. If you have nothing to hide, if there's no wrongdoing, you're honest. Yeah. He has not been honest. So there's plenty of evidence. Well, first of all, we actually had to issue a subpoena to the FBI to deliver documents, which they never delivered. They slow-walked that to the end of the Trump administration, and we never got the truth. But we did uncover, for example, in the redacted footnotes of Michael Horowitz's FISA report, that the FBI knew as early as October 2016 and certainly by January 2017 that the Steele dossier contained Russian disinformation, and yet they allowed the Mueller investigation to proceed. And as late as, I think it was March of 2018, the FBI briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee and said that the Steele dossier still had integrity. So, I mean, there are so many examples. Obviously, the entire FBI investigation to Donald Trump's collusion with Russia, which was a complete hoax, was completely corrupt. And, for example, I think you mentioned earlier that we were first offered that Hunter Biden laptop by Mr. McIsaac. But again, we have to do our due diligence. We didn't know it was this stolen property, so we did what any responsible member of Congress would do. We went to the FBI to report it, to find out what they knew. They wouldn't tell us anything. What they should have done is they should have told us, yeah, Senator, we have that laptop, or at least a copy of it in our possession. We don't have any reason to think it's not authentic. At a minimum, when the 51 corrupt former intelligence officials came out with no evidence and said that the laptop was Russian disinformation, had every sign of it, to basically cover up for Joe Biden, the FBI should have come forward and said, no, we have no reason to suspect this is Russian disinformation. They didn't. They covered up for Joe Biden, so that they have proven that these federal agencies are in the tank for the Democrats. They helped certainly undermine the Trump administration for the entire 4 years. This is serious business. This is the biggest. This is the most corruption I've ever seen in the United States federal government. But here's what we know. We know that Hunter Biden's business partner, who's also on the board of Burisma, is now a convicted felon. We know that Devin Archer, met with Joe Biden 2 months after the Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine, 5 days before Joe Biden made a trip to Ukraine, was named the point person for the Obama administration. A day after that, Devin Archer is named to the board of Burisma, that corrupt oil and gas company. A few weeks later, Hunter Biden is named to the board. They collected about $4 million from Burisma. So it's just a timeline. What happened in just a month shows corruption is sleazy. Again, I don't know what's legal, what's illegal, but at a minimum, it is incredibly sleazy. And I think you have to assume, as Tony Bobulinski told us, that Joe Biden as president is compromised. Why else did he cancel the Nord Stream 2 sanctions? Why did he cancel the China initiative, which is the Department of Justice initiative to try and investigate and uncover Chinese theft of intellectual property. What is going on here? I don't know all the details, but you know who does, Maria? Chinese intelligence, Russian intelligence, probably Iranian, North Korean intelligence. And here's the really sad part. I believe our FBI and U.S. intelligence agencies know as well. They're just not going to tell us or you, the American public. But you have to be suspicious of that. And remember, what was all underpinning the whole Russian collusion with Trump hoax was the media was so concerned that if Trump had any ties with Russia, that would undermine a Trump presidency and allow for blackmail. And here you have a treasure trove of evidence that Joe Biden actually is compromised. He actually has all this vast web of connections in China, in Kazakhstan, in Russia, in Ukraine. And yet the media just turns a blind eye toward it. This is corruption at the highest level.
And, of course, we played the soundbite of the 2020 debate where Chris Wallace interrupted President Trump when Trump was trying to explain that $3.5 million check from the former mayor of Moscow's wife and all the money Biden has received. And Chris Wallace turns around and says, Mr. Trump matters. You also saw the soundbite of John Harwood over at CNN saying this has nothing to do with Joe Biden. How does it have nothing to do with Joe Biden when it's his name and title that they're playing on, that they're peddling out there to get money and meetings?
Well, of course, it has everything to do with Joe Biden. But again, what this proves is how complicit the media is in this. We don't have an impartial mainstream media anymore. They are advocates for the Democrat Party. And now, Maria, quite honestly, they're coming after me. They're trying to destroy me. They've been trying to destroy me now for 2 years. They lied about both Chuck Grassley and I. Democrats in Congress created a false intelligence product accusing Chuck Grassley and I of soliciting and disseminating Russian disinformation, leaked that to the media. And of course, the media dutifully complied and smeared us. And now, as I'm trying to run for re-election here, they're trying to do the exact same thing. So if I hate to do this, Maria, but I am being attacked. The media is trying to take me out. I need resources. My website is ronjohnsonforsenate.com. If you want us to get to the bottom of this, I'll become chairman of the permissive subcommittee on investigations. I need your help to get reelected so we can expose the truth, because the media will not do it.
I think it'll take decades of studying this era of the last 2 years before we fully calculate just how much this was a huge boon for those people in power. And I think you were one of the first ones to detect this. It was never, or at the very beginning, for a lot of people, I think it was about health, a lot of concerns about that. But very quickly, it became something all about power for the people that were in Congress, in particular Democrats. And they used it to make themselves more powerful, to make the government more powerful, to enrich their donors, to hijack the election, and to destroy Trump, which of course was the biggest goal of all. And what's so disturbing about it is they won. It worked. And so anybody who thinks that the lesson from this is for them is anything other than let's do it again, you're sadly mistaken, because I guarantee you the only lesson they took out of this is that it worked. But when Trump first came along, I thought that the reason so many people in Washington didn't like him, it was all about style. It wasn't about style at all. I now realize that. Now, to be clear, they don't like his style. They don't like the style of America. They loathe regular Americans. But the real issue they had with him was the issues that Donald Trump and Trump alone identified, that both Democrats and Republicans had ignored for years, like illegal immigration, like the collapse of our middle class, like the collapse of our industry in this country, standing up to China, all of these issues that both parties had ignored for so long. And he identified them and realized, and of course, the vast majority of the American people agree with him on all of those issues, irrespective of party or all of the fake racial delineations that politicians try to divide everybody up in. The real thing that they feared about Donald Trump was he was on to stuff. He was on to issues that actually mattered to people. And if you go back to the 2016 election, I've always said this, and I think it's absolutely true, it was the most issue-oriented election of our lifetime. There's been no other presidential election that was more based on issues. He didn't get elected by being a nice guy. He got elected because he was talking about issues that politicians in both parties had ignored for decades.
Food supplies have been completely wiped out. We have a evacuation of all counties. I report complete devastation. We have a giant squall, cloud, gobbling up everything in their path. This is a total loss of life.
There are forces in this world that remind us of how fragile we are. We thought we were safe. We thought it could never happen to us. Then life like a fog descends upon us, blanketing our memories. Through the haze, we travel its hidden paths, lost in its secret places. And when the storm, turbulent and immovable, forces us to shelter, we remember. It calls to us, calls us back. Back to the ports and the harbors of our past. We fight the currents that pull and drag us off course, not a light or star to chart the way. And when we arrive, we don't always know it at first, the places we once loved guised by time. Then we see it, the place we've been trying to get back to. Safe at last, we've found our way home.